So last time I handed out an outline for the 9th class, and it had these words on it. These are words from Aristotle on rhetoric: techne, dynamis, and energia. And I'm now going to attempt to explain what they mean in rhetoric, because they form the basis of the fact that rhetoric is both a systematic study in which we determine elements of it, learn them, and employ them, but it is also a practice that cannot be reduced to an absolutely strict and demonstrable science. And in the effort of doing this, though at the risk of committing the fallacy of a false analogy, I'm going to enlist the help of Anna. Now, I had a conversation with, we have two Annas. This Anna, we had a conversation the other day, and I discovered that Anna is a tennis player. Is that correct, Anna?
Yep.
Yes. And do you play club level or varsity level or what?
I'm on the varsity team.
Oh, she's on the varsity team. All right. So we have a really good tennis player here. So I'm going to ask you a question about, first, techne, not you, but anyone. What does this word look like? What English word does techne look like?
Technique.
Yeah, technique. What other word? Technology, yes, and it's very closely related to both of these things. Techne is the ability, so if you're in biology, you learn a technique to do maybe gene splicing, right? That's something you learn. It's a skill. It's something, in fact, I'm told that even high school students can be taught how to do CRISPR. You all know what CRISPR is? Well, if you don't know, find out, because it's going to affect your lives. Already is beginning to affect them. And even a high school student apparently can master the techniques needed to do CRISPR at a certain level. Wow. Okay, you'll find out what CRISPR is. Yep, you will. But now we've got to get back to tennis. Anna, technique was a word used.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are learning tennis, what do you learn? What are some of the most basic things you learn in tennis?
So you learn the strokes, so the basic.
All right, let's stop right there. Good. You learn the strokes, plural. So what strokes are there?
Forehand.
Forehand. Do you have one of these windshield wiper forehands now? Yeah, mm-hmm. They're really powerful. Kind of boom. Put a lot of, like 3,000 RPMs on the ball. They don't have that fancy equipment to measure here, do they?
No, but I think that's like Nadal level, so mine might be a little bit lower, but almost.
Almost. That's good. Imagine that. You hit a tennis. Now, that's a technique. You have to learn it. You have to say, you just can't go say, give me a racket. It doesn't work that way. And how often how many forehands do you think you've hit in your life?
Probably over 10,000?
Yeah, I would say more than 10,000. If you're good, because you've been playing tennis for 15 years?
I started when I was 10, so around 9 years.
9 years, all right. So maybe it's only 10,000, but I really bet it's more than that. What other strokes are there?
Backhand.
Backhand, do you have a two-handed backhand or one-handed? Yeah,
two-handed.
You've got two-handed backhand. What else?
Volleys.
Volleys, yeah. Do you have a two-handed backhand volley?
Oh, one-handed.
A one-handed backhand volley. All right. See how complicated tennis is? It is complicated. What other strokes are there?
Serves.
Serve, yeah, serve. Now, serve, plural serves, right?
Mm-hmm.
What different kind of serves are there?
So you can put different spins on it.
Yeah. A flat serve.
Or no spin.
Too, yeah. American twist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Slice.
Slice.
Yeah, what else?
Top spin.
Top spin, yeah. Like that? I used to play. I was okay once. These are all strokes. Now, we haven't exhausted it yet. What other strokes do you have? Do you have a drop? Yeah. Go ahead.
Drop shots.
Yeah. Backhand drop shot?
Mm-hmm.
Like that? Do you do forehand drop shot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Approach shot?
Approach shots.
Underspin approach shot, or don't they teach that anymore?
They still do. More top spin, though.
More top spin now. But you can do top spin or, yeah. Other strokes? Oh, come on. Yeah.
Overheads?
Yeah, overheads. Overheads is sort of like a serve, but not really a serve. What else? Oh, come on. You have to be on the defensive sometime.
High heavies?
Yeah,
A lob?
Top spin lob. Backspin lob. I know you're kind of like, geez. These are all your arsenal of techne. And if you don't have all of them, you might be a good tennis player because you might cover up the fact you don't have a good drop shot. Some strokes are probably more important than others. You better have a halfway decent serve, right? And you better have, what if you have a really weak second serve?
The opponent will attack you.
Yes, the opponent will attack you. Did you have to learn all these? Yes. So these are the ethos, logos, pathos, exordium, narratio, confirmatio, reprehensio, peroratio. These are the topics that we'll start to talk about today. These are all of the elements in the tennis game. Now, further, Anna, sorry to put you on the spot, but that's techne. What else do you have to know? I mean, you're going to play, right? So what else do you have to be able to do?
Strategy, using those.
Okay, strategy. You have to have some strategy. You have to know how to, what is the phrase? Construct a point, right? That is, you're going to go cross court, and then someone gives you something right in your hitting zone. Maybe you're not going to hit that cross court. What are you going to do with it?
Rip it down the line.
Rip it down the line, that's right. Now, if you don't know tennis, I'm sorry, but she's right, and we did not rehearse this. The ball comes to you, and instead of hitting that high percentage shot cross court, because your opponent's kind of favoring that because it is the high percentage shot you might hit, but it's right in your hitting zone, there it is, it's as big as a balloon, and you're going to rip it right down the line. You have to be a little careful, though, because the distance is shorter down the line than cross court, and what about the net height?
Higher.
It's higher, yeah, it's about that much higher. And you see a lot of people rip it down the line, and it bam, hits the top of the net. And they go, oh, because they had it all lined up and they didn't get it. Strategy. How about movement? You have to, can you kind of play like this?
No, you have to cover the court.
Cover the
Anticipate
court.
where the
hard.
opponent's going.
Court's pretty big, right? Maybe it's not big to you. It's getting bigger to me every year. So you have to have movement. You have to have strategy. You have to have dynamis. You have to be able to get around. You have to be able to construct a point. But we're not yet at the pièce de la résistance of rhetorical practice, which is putting all of these together in what?
A point? A match?
A match, right. You're going to play a match. You're going to have to, when you play a match, you're not just constructing a point. What are you thinking about immediately after you've warmed up with your opponent and maybe played a game or two? What's going through your head?
You're trying to think about their weakness.
Yeah, you're trying to think about their weakness. How can I break down that massive forehand? How can I, should I keep on going at it and at it and at it and then off it and then back at it? Or should I, and what happens if you hit 3 drop shots and the other person is up there and they get it and they re-drop you and you lose the point? You're going to hit a 4th drop shot?
Change it up.
Change it up, yeah. Your opponent is your audience. Only you're trying to defeat your opponent in tennis, and in rhetoric, you're trying to convince your audience. You have to gauge your audience just as you gauge your opponent. You have to put together the techniques of rhetoric, all that conditioning and movement and strategy, the dynamics, and then you have to go out and play the match. Do you feel better playing some days than other days? Yeah. Everybody has their off days. Someday, you're like in the zone and you can do no wrong. And you just think, how did I do that? 3 times in a row, too. That was great. And then the next day, you can't beat the person that you beat 6 times before. I always like Vitas Gerulaitis' comment when he finally beat Jimmy Connors. Finally. And he said in mock seriousness to the television, nobody beats Vitas Gerulaitis 13 times in a row. He had lost 12 in a row. So in rhetoric, you have techniques. You have the ability to use certain organizational strategies, to construct sentences, to use syllogistic reasoning, and, as we'll learn today and next week, to employ topics, probable future fact, cause and effect, definition and division. And you have to practice these in order to be able to use them. You can't just use them. It's like tennis. Now, I'm not saying go out and use them 10,000 times. No. But use them enough so that you say, well, that's in my arsenal. I recognize that. I understand how to use that. I understand the 5 parts of a classical oration enough so that I know when maybe I don't need one of them, or when I have to spend extra time, say, on the narration. So you need technique, and then in rhetoric, you also have to gauge the argument in this situation. You have to understand the time, the place, the audience. You have to be able to put these elements together. It's not enough just to know them. You actually have to construct a point with them. Literally, a point, meaning an argument. You have to be able to construct that. Do you construct a point the same way against every opponent? No, why not, Anna?
Because different opponents have different strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, different audiences have different reactions. Different purposes have reasons to construct different kinds of points. Precisely also. Now you can say, oh, Professor Engel, you lost me. I don't know tennis at all. Well, think of something else. Maybe think of a piano performance. Think of doing scales. That's technique. You do a lot of scales. Anybody here do piano? Do you do scales, Joel? Yeah, still do them? You don't practice them. Oh, well. But should you? If you want to be a concert pianist, even if you're at the top of your game, should you still do some scales? Yeah, okay. And then exercises, perhaps, certain pieces. And then what about the performance itself? That's always a little different, maybe. Is it possible for you to give a really good performance of a piece one time and not so good the next time? Sure, this is why in recordings that are done, they'll often re-record things. So if you're listening to a recording of a symphony, it's probably not the symphony played as it was played from beginning to end live, unless it's a live recording. It's probably a studio production in which they said, oh, stop at the end of the second movement. That was no good. Let's go back and do the second movement. Or they'll have a recording session in which they piece together the different movements until they finally get the final recording of the symphony that they want. So, energia in rhetoric means the actual performance whose intent is to capture the audience's complete attention and present them a full picture of what is going on. And in many cases, it's almost visual. It means real energy. Electricity. You ever been in a kind of a convention or a place where somebody is speaking and there's a kind of electricity to a kind of a voltage to it all? I remember Cornel West speaking out here in front of Massachusetts Hall a few years ago about fossil fuels and why they weren't such a good thing. At least they weren't going to be a good thing perpetually. Something would have to be done. And Cornel West, who's a wonderful orator, he got everyone quite worked up about it because there was tremendous energy there. Everybody was listening to him. There's a kind of capacity in speaking or even in writing. And in writing, it's not maybe so much so that a tingle goes down your back. It is that you keep on reading. You're interested. You're compelled to finish it because it's carrying you along. There's a force to it. There is an energy, an energia, which is the total realization of techne and dynamis into an actual performance, a match. A match. You win the match or you lose the match in tennis. In rhetoric, it's probably not so yes or no. You probably have success or mixed success, but you could have a failure too. You could have a failure of ethos, you could have a failure of argument, you could lose most people. It's usually a little more mixed though, but the idea is to do as much as you possibly can. Get it done. So when Aristotle thought of these 3 elements, this is roughly what he thought of. Thank you, Anna. Every answer was exactly spot on. It was. Now, one more thing though, when you get out in the tennis court, don't let all this get into your head about techne and all. Just zone out and zone in. Because we all know that if you overthink something, that's not good either, right? And the way not to overthink it is to practice a lot too, yeah? Okay. So I wanted to make clear these 3 elements that Aristotle focuses on. And I didn't really give you reading on this that was required, but if you look at some of the reading in Farrell, that optional reading in Farrell's Norms of Rhetorical Culture, you'll come across these terms. if you look at Farrell's books, but I think they're important enough so that we should know them anyway. All right, very good. So let's take a little breather and begin to settle in to look at what in rhetoric are called topics. And we'll do some of these again on Tuesday. I want today to talk about topics in a general way and then point out some specifics of how the topics are actually used in writing. Did everyone read some of Federalist 10 for today? Yep. And Madison and Henry on the Constitution? Great. So we're going to look at as much of those as we can, and if we don't get to all of it today, that'll be all right. We can continue it on Tuesday or might continue it next week in section. I might say to some degree, as operations are to numbers, so the topics are to verbal reasoning and rhetoric. So what would be an example of an operation in mathematics? Addition, yeah, that's an operation. What would be another example of an operation?
Multiplication.
Yeah, multiplication. I suppose a derivative in a formula is an operation. There are all kinds of operations that can be performed on numbers. They are ways of manipulating or using numbers. So topics are ways of manipulating language according to certain logical thought processes or conceptions. And they are, for better or worse, called topics. It's not like the topic of a paper. It is a special category. They're used to find, locate, and work up an argument. They're used to help inventing an argument. What kinds of thinking does language facilitate and permit? What kinds of thinking? Now, we've already seen one kind of logical thinking that we can put in language, and what did we call that? It's got 3 parts. Syllogism, yes. So syllogism, it's not a topic itself, but it's a form of logic, and you use language for it. Now, there are syllogisms that you can do in more symbolic form, but you can use language, as we saw in the Declaration of Independence. One of the reasons, now this may seem a little odd, but one of the reasons that some rhetoricians, some speakers are more successful than others is that they have a bigger store of vocabulary and general knowledge to draw on, elements of techne to some degree, in order to use topics. You remember Frederick Douglass? His speech on What to the Slave is the 4th of July. And did he use poetry? Yes. Did he use history? Yes. Did he use religious texts? Yes. Did he quote secular texts? Yes. Did he talk about science and technology? Yes, he did. At the end of his oration, he talked about how the world was getting smaller. It was kind of an early version of globalization. He said, you know, the steamship makes the Atlantic much smaller, and now we're able to communicate much faster by telegraph. The world is shrinking. It's one of the early visions of globalization that you find in American political rhetoric. So Douglass could do this only because he had achieved a kind of liberal education, meaning broad. And he is able to bring to bear all of these references because he has run across them. He has studied them. And some of them might appeal more to parts of his audience than others, but since his audience is fairly broad, he wants to try to be quite broad himself. So let's start taking a look at these topics. If you have classical rhetoric for the modern student with you, and if you don't, you can easily do it later, you can look at this very handy thing on the inside paper of what common topics are. And we're going to talk about these today. Definition. We've already talked some about definition in the class. Genus and division come under definition. In other words, is something part of a larger class?